Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Mom's Movement and Mindset, how to break the resistance and transform your body and mind. I'm your host, Don Fisher. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Excited for today as we continue this interview series. Going to be speaking with a lady who I have never had the pleasure of speaking with before. And of course, that is Kathy Stowell. Um, Kathy is a business mentor for moms who are coaches. She helps her clients get clarity on their niche, their signature offer, and simple marketing plan to follow that attracts consistent dream clients. With her background as a simplicity and creativity coach, her superpowers include sniffing out overcomplicated so you can build the business of your dreams with ease, self-confidence, and loads of downtime to connect with your loved ones and yourself. Hi, Kathy. How are we
Hi,
doing?
Don. We're doing awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. Thank you for being here. Keeping me on my toes with your intro there. That's for sure.
It's a mouthful for
Um,
sure.
it's good though. It keeps me like I said, it keeps me
Yeah.
alert. All right, so let's jump right in. So first
Yeah.
question to you. Given your experience now, if
hmm
you could, like with the interview this is primarily about is overcoming resistance. So
Yeah.
with that said, could you define resistance, based on what you've experienced, and then
hmm
provide some examples of resistance that you've witnessed from either your current clients or potential clients?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I view resistance as a gift. It is inevitable, and you're going to face a lot of it as you're obviously reaching for your goals. So I work with a lot of coaches or wannabe coaches, and that's a lot to put on your shoulders at first, especially when you are putting yourself out there as a certain professional or a certain life calling. So I find ironically, a lot of the women who come to me, they feel that calling within, that they have come through a journey where they've overcome a lot of challenges slash resistance. And now they feel really compelled that they want to offer the support to others who are experiencing the same sort of, um, struggle. And but even though they feel very pulled to help others in this way, um, the ego starts to speak up, or that part of our brain that wants to keep us safe. And we get kind of talked off the ledge where we need to take those very important little either baby steps or massive leaps to get us to where we want to be. So, yeah, so for someone to be saying, I want to be a coach, there's going to be that part of their brain that wants to keep them safe. And they're going to be like, well, what's everyone going to think? Who am I to be a coach? So that's a lot of it. It's almost for my clients in my sphere, it's an identity crisis of sorts, is this questioning. So that's often what I see, but luckily all of that is coachable.
Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like there's this process, I guess, of like shifting from like the beliefs that have been conditioned into like someone's authentic self and the,
hmm
the struggle, I guess, between the two. Um, so with that, the people that you might work with, um, people that you're currently working with, when they come to you, right, they want to change, they want to become a coach, but yet there's this resistance. So why do you think that resistance is there when they want nothing more than to change, right? If they come to you and say, I want to be a coach, and they're really serious about it, but there's this pushback, like
Yeah.
what do you think what's up with that?
I think a lot of it has to do because I work primarily with moms. Um, there's a tendency for people pleasing. We want to make sure everyone around us is happy. And it's built in to our wiring that we need to make sure that the kids are fed, they're kept alive. We're not going to food poison anyone. So it's kind of like a lot has to do with we need to take care of others before ourselves. And so we often stuff our own dreams down. So I actually used to train moms how to coach others. So for 7 years, I offered a coaching training program, and there was an application process. And I kid you not, about 80% of the women who filled out these applications, there was a question. One of the prompts was, how old are your kids? 80% of them had a 5-year-old son. It was really kind of bizarre. It's like, what an interesting statistic. So I think that is the age of, usually was the youngest child, that these women starting to feel a little realization that they're going to be okay. They can like wipe their own butts. They can walk around. They can like make themselves a peanut butter sandwich if need be. And now it's time for me to explore what is it that I really want. So I think a lot of it comes from that forgetting to put ourselves first, where the reality is, if we can remember, by putting our own needs first, we are inspiring others around us to do the same, including our kids, including from a younger age than we can even imagine. And then we'll just be able to come up with those creative ways to explore how we can meet everyone's needs, including ourselves.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that was so nicely put. Um, and you touched on a little bit like when you were responding even to the first question, but again, like when this resistance, like the anxiety, the fear that maybe
Mm,
comes up when people are thinking about taking care of themselves,
yeah.
when that blocks them, I guess, what could you say, or like some tips, I guess, that you could provide for that person, to kind of
Mhm.
like walk through that, right? And like kind of
Yeah.
move through that discomfort so that they can change, right? And get on that
Yeah.
path.
For sure. So my go-to advice, and it's a little bit open-ended, but it's just this overarching, pay attention to what works for you when you move through discomfort. So once again, because I work with a lot of moms, a lot of my coaching inspiration comes from the birthing process. And I know moms come to be in many shapes and forms, like not just through natural birth, but also cesarean, adoption. Regardless of how you land to be a mom, there was a birthing process, and that involves a lot of discomfort, uncertainty, a lot of fear, anxiety. And so it's consider what carried you through that resistance, that discomfort. For instance, what works for me, I share this story when I was at a beach with a girlfriend. So I live in Canada where the lake waters are freezing. So there's a small window. It's like about beginning of August where the temperature is, you could swim for about like 2 minutes. Okay. And it's really embarrassing because I do this crazy dance to get into the lake. I go in, stand there at the, ankle length, ankle deep, and then I come back and then I go up. And it takes me about half an hour. And my girlfriend was just like, Jesus, like you've given birth, you can get into this lake. So that is my go-to, is I think of, I've done harder things than this. I have that mama bear energy. I actually, after I gave birth, with my first one especially, I gave this like really impressive roar after. It's like, rah, I can do anything, right? So just think of when you have overcome resistance, and I still use that trick on myself today. Getting into the lake water, I always kind of tweak it for what works for me now in terms of reaching my goals and stepping out of my own comfort zone in my business. Because being a business owner, that's a lot of scary stuff you have to face every day, but it gets to be almost kind of like a game. So just look at fun ways to overcome, and what's working for me lately. Same thing, it's time of this recording, it's August, so it's you can get into the water for 2 minute season. And I stand there and now I think, this is how committed I am to reaching this goal. And it's still sort of related to the birthing process, like I'm committed to getting that baby, and I just jump in, and it gets easier and easier. So paying attention to what works for you, always checking in to see if you can like switch it up a bit so it stays interesting, and pay attention to how after you overcome it, it gets easier and easier each time you do it. Because I notice that in the water, every time I do it in, it's not as painful and it's actually feels really good. Not like it's an interesting sensation. So pay attention to the interesting sensation and remember like how worth it is afterwards.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I'm kind of taken away there. It's subjective, which
Yeah.
sometimes I feel probably can be frustrating, right? Because people want like a very cookie cutter, approach, like one
Hmm.
size fits all.
Yeah.
But I think what's cool about the way you broke that down too is the fact that it allows the individual to kind of like explore what works for them and truly make it their own process of like, again, walking through that discomfort, and overcoming those blocks,
Hmm.
and moving forward. So I don't know if you want to add anything else onto that or.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you said subjective. One book I recommend to all my clients, I don't know if you read it, it's The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's an excellent read, and it touches upon the subjectivity of it, basically, how everyone is, I don't know if they're born with, but they seem to integrate this barometer within themselves of how much success they deem themselves worthy of having. So when we feel ourselves hitting that point of, okay, I think that's enough for now, we sabotage ourselves in interesting ways. So in the book, they call it upper limit beliefs. And so it's just having that awareness of what is this fear really about? And some examples in the book include all of a sudden you'll pick up this bizarre argument with your partner, or you start spending all the money, like, coming back to business, you start getting this like nice little consistent cash flow, and then you just like blow it all on these like crazy like splurges. And even more sinister, you'll notice that you'll start getting sick. And I noticed this with myself. Like I'll be in the middle of a launch and then all of a sudden I'll get this like cold, and I just am knocked down, flat on my back. And then when I had this awareness, I'm like, am I really sick, or is this fear within me of reaching this success? And then I think having that awareness is really important too. And then you can start exploring, what's this fear really about? And then when I explored it, all this like really weird stuff came out. Like my husband's an avid rock climber. So I had this like weird thought. I'm like, oh my God, if I start becoming the sole breadwinner, he's gonna like run off to Thailand for 6 months of the year to go rock climbing and fall in love with a masseuse. Like weird stuff came up, and I came up with all these other weird scenarios that weren't related to that. But it's just interesting to shine a light, and then we can just make peace with ourselves. Again, it's like, okay, even if the worst case scenario should happen, I will survive. And is this really, do I still want to go for it? Or do I really want to like kind of coach myself down? Is that really going to happen? Or maybe have conversation with my husband about Thai massages. I don't know. So, so that's something else to consider, our upper limit beliefs.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, he says this all the time to me, when I'm getting in my head. He's like, hey, remember, man, feelings aren't facts. And I think
Yes.
it's so important to remember because, you're talking a lot about belief, and
Yeah.
beliefs, they're conditioned, right? They're
Yep.
not, they're not, they're not based in fact. It's just been what our experience till now has
Mm-hmm.
led us to believe.
Yep.
And I think that's empowering because, as you're saying, it's like when you dig deeper and explore that and you realize like this is not true,
Mm-hmm.
this is just what I have come to believe, and then maybe that brings you like some level of comfort to kind of move forward.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Yeah, and they say too, beliefs are just the thoughts that we have over and over again. So if we can be aware of what our thoughts are, we have an opportunity to ask ourselves those questions for sure.
Awesome. And then you started to touch on this a little bit, but I'm gonna ask here. um Now, resistance, so not resistance, but resiliency.
Ooh.
If somebody they find themselves, right, they get this blockage, right, there's these feelings, these beliefs getting in the way, but they're able to work through this process,
Mm-hmm.
realize again, feelings aren't facts, and they take that
Mm-hmm.
step, and they're able to overcome a certain level of resistance and move forward. How is it that breaking through that builds resiliency so that like it becomes easier and easier
Mm-hmm.
moving forward to continue to make changes?
Yeah. It's like a muscle, right? You're a trainer. So I know when I used to be a gym rat like 20 years ago, and going to aerobics twice a week. Uh, but I remember working with a trainer, and she explained to me how muscles build themselves. So it's made up, right, like a little tiny rips, and then they basically mend, and that's how you'd get defined. So yeah, I think it's the same way. It's it's a matter of the resilience piece of accepting the fact that reaching success is a matter of failing over and over again. So just being open to that. I shared this story with my family, and I got 2 kids and a husband and 2 wiener dogs, but I just told the humans at the dinner table, and of course their eyes rolled after I said this, but this story really inspires me. There's I think America's first billionaire woman. She invented Spanx. I can't remember her name. I apologize. But if you Google Spanx lady failure story, she shared when she was growing up at the dinner table each night, her dad, she had like 5 siblings or something. Everyone had to go around and share a story of how they failed that day, and they would celebrate that because that shows that they are striving to for personal growth, for going for something. And that is where that opportunity for growth is, that opportunity to rip those tiny muscles and then build them up stronger and stronger. So I try to get my family to celebrate failure every day, but we just decided just to watch Survivor every night at dinner time instead. But I think that's an important piece of it, is the resilience piece. When I work with my clients, I personally love like a monthly goal, and we come up with the plan, and we just keep trying that plan over and over again, and then evaluate, tweak it, and we celebrate the failures, because you do have to put yourself out there. There's lots of discomfort, but it gets easier, like jumping into the water. Each time you do it, it gets easier and easier, and your resiliency will come because you'll get stronger and stronger. And you're teaching that brain that's trying to keep you safe that it's okay. You will get through this, you'll survive. And also accepting it's always going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's part of the human experience.
Yeah, I love that you finished up there with that, because that's been a theme that I've seen across the board here with like a lot of the other speakers that I've talked to so far. Um, Whereas failure, I feel like it tends to get viewed in like black and white, like it's like a
Yeah.
finish line, like, oh, I failed, like that means I can't do this, that's it. Whereas shifting our thinking and viewing the failure more as like a data point, just
Mhm.
like, okay, well, what worked well, what didn't,
Yeah.
and then allowing myself to, like you said, go through that process of like what works for me, like make
Yep.
those changes. And it's like, that's where the growth happens. And I love the analogy with the weight room. It's so true. Like you got to be uncomfortable and to grow. If you're comfortable, you're not growing.
Yep.
So, no, that's great. And I guess just last thing here, um, are there any specific, I don't know, like activities or exercises that you'll do with some of the moms that you coach, to help them step outside of their comfort zone?
Yeah, for sure. There's so many. Um, so I, again, when I'm all about the simplicity piece. So when I have these mom coaches come to me, I encourage them, let's just choose a niche. Usually they work with moms. So if you want to just say you're a life coach for moms, awesome. But if we can narrow that down a little bit. And part of the reason I like to do that is because then that will dictate, um, what your coaching offer is going to be, what your messaging is. It just makes it so much easier. So you just have to like come to your desk every day and be like, oh, what am I going to talk about? You have a niche statement. So I coach them to be like, I want you to write down every day, I help moms, or if you want to be specific, homeschooling moms or moms who are physicians, whatever, and then homing in on one particular struggle so that they can, and then get the result that you're an expert of getting people to. So when I help these moms, and this could be for everyone, regardless of what you do, but if you could come up with, even just for, again, just for a month, come up with some kind of anchor statement of what your purpose is or what you're striving for, in the name of service. So it's something outside of yourself. And I get them to really write out nice and slow their niche statement every morning so that it gets them, because there's this story from a quote from Mr. Rogers. So when you're feeling like some um, kind of discomfort within yourself, or feeling powerless, like especially if like a big tragedy, and the state of our world right now, there's so many unknowns. It's like anxiousness, kind of a universal anxiousness. It's like, okay, when a tragedy like this is happening, let's see who outside of us needs some help. How can I be of some service? So I encourage my own clients to begin each day almost like with self-coaching. Let's shine the light on what our thoughts are right now. Begin with your I help statement. And then from there, then you can get into the tone of what actions am I going to take today? And then it kind of takes a little bit about of the resistance away in terms of it's not so self-focused, it's more outward focused. So I can show up in a place of service. And I think that could be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I can just relate to that from my personal experience. When I'm solely focused on like how I'm feeling, whether it
Yeah.
be happy or sad, um, I always tend to just that obsession like just grows and grows and grows. And I
Yeah.
love how you phrased it, right? Because it is outside of ourselves. Like when we are helping somebody else, we're not thinking about ourselves. Like we're not thinking
Yeah.
about what's going on or what's wrong. Like our focus is there and like we're helping somebody, which is so powerful.
Yeah.
Obviously, people helping people, it's really powerful.
For
So.
sure. And honoring our feelings still. I'm not saying like stuff them down into a little box. So you're just a ticking time bomb. For sure. Sit with your feelings. Absolutely. And then move forward with gratitude and love.
Absolutely. So, Kathy, thank you again for being here. Everyone, again, watching at home, this is Kathy Stowell. Um, it was awesome. I'm so grateful. Again, you took time out of your schedule to be here today and to offer up the value that you did. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. That was fun.